I'm here with Kerr, and she has brought what might be one of my all-time favorite projects. We are making eyeballs, right?
Eyeballs, that's right. I love making them, and they're really easy to make.
Well, that's music to my ears, so how do we get started?
Okay, well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually use a marble.
Okay.
And we're going to make a mold out of that marble using a two-part putty. And so I'm just going to go ahead and take 2 equal parts of this stuff, and I'm going to...
I was going to say, this is actually a good tip, too, that I thought you gave, which is using a popsicle stick to scoop the putty out, because sometimes, I mean, I can't get my fingers in there.
Right,
so.
right. And you definitely want 2 equal parts, so I'll go ahead and just kind of, you know, it doesn't have to be a science. And then when you have the 2 parts, you're going to go ahead and mix them together. You have 2 different colors, and you want to end up with 1 solid color.
So you're looking for a light yellow here.
Yeah,
obviously
light yellow.
Something like that.
And I do have some wax paper on the surface here, so that's going to...
is this going to stick to things, so you always want to be careful to work on that wax paper or something?
Yeah, I do like to get into the habit of having it on the table.
So do you have to coat your hands with anything to make sure that it doesn't stick?
No, it doesn't really stick to your hands. You don't need anything. I'll just go ahead and
form it into a lumpy
little
ball.
Lumpy thing, right? And then I'll take that marble and I will just put it in there and let it cure for about 10 minutes.
So you let it cure with the marble in it.
I do,
and
yeah.
The marble is also going to release from there without a problem.
No problem at all. And one way to check the mold to see if it's ready is if you press it down with something and it leaves a mark, then it's not ready. So you want to wait a few more until you can press it and you don't see anything.
I was going to say, this is the old, if you bite a pearl and it dents, it's real. So don't poke it in the middle.
Right.
Poke it somewhere on the edge.
Right, right. And so I'll go ahead and put this one off to the side and just let it cure. And so I have one that's all ready, so we can start our eyeballs. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take some of this clear resin. Again, I need 2 equal parts, and so I have 1 part already poured out, and I'm going to go ahead and pour out another equal part of this.
And you're just eyeballing to make sure that there are equal parts there. Now, why do you pour into 2 different cups as opposed to the same cup?
You know, you can do that if you're using a measuring cup, but I mean, you don't have to be exact, but you do want to get them, you know, pretty close, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and pour one into the other, and then I'll just mix it together.
Now, I was worried that you were going to have to take that cup, scrape it out, really make sure that every little last bit was out of there, but you don't have to.
I mean, you don't really have to. If you're taking your time, then sure, because this has a longer cure time.
And I was going to say, you need to mix this for about 2 minutes, right, to make sure that it's done.
Right.
And after you've mixed it for about 2 minutes,
then I'm going to go ahead and add a first layer of resin to my little mold here. And you have to remember that we are working backwards. So this first layer is the front of the eye. And so I'm just putting a little dot of resin right there, and I'm going to let that cure.
Just regular, clear, nothing.
Yep, that's right.
And when you say cure, for people who've never worked with resin, may I touch this? It's hard.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep. And so I'll just let it sit there until it's ready. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take some of that resin again, and I'm going to add some black dye to it. And we're going to make the pupil of the eye. And so I'm just going to, this time I'm going to pour just a little bit.
And you're pouring the resin actually into the dye, not the dye into the resin, so that you're reserving some of the resin for later use.
Right, exactly. And so a little bit of the dye goes a very, very long way.
I was going to say,
oh,
I thought
that was a very long, you only need a tiny, tiny bit. I'm just going to put that aside. And so I'm going to take just a brush, and I'm just going to make a little pupil.
Now, is there a reason you wouldn't want to use plain paint for this?
You know, you can use plain paint, but I like that. I did try it with the paint, and I also tried it with the resin. I like this look better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Personal preference.
Yeah, exactly. And so I would let that cure. Okay, and I do have one that's already cured here, and it's good to go. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some sparkle to the eyeball, and we're going to use some paint here, some
so now
metallic.
We are just directly adding the paint on, and I can already see that it's a more transparent, more translucent effect than really having that resin mixed with dye.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I normally would do about 2 layers of this metallic paint.
So you'd let it dry in between and add another layer.
Right, right. And so I'll go ahead and put that aside. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the color of the eye. And so I am just going to use some of this pretty blue.
And again, this is just a layer of acrylic paint. If you wanted to have it to have brown eyes, if you wanted to have purple eyes, whatever it is. Cat's eyes could be yellow.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this is just some colors of choice. I mean, I tried a couple of different colors. This is the one that I really liked.
And you told me a nice tip here, which is before the paint dries, we're gonna scratch.
Right, because the next layer, we're gonna add some more of that black resin. And you wanna be able to see the lines in the eyeball. And so you're just scratching the paint, and then you're gonna add some more of that black
resin onto there.
Right on top there. And
I
you're
like
gonna
how you
let
just
that
pour it in the middle
cure.
and it spreads out, and obviously the mold keeps everything. The whole reason you're doing that is to keep everything.
Absolutely. And so this one's already cured, and one of the last things we're going to do is we're actually going to take some more of the resin, and I'm going to actually use white dye this time around. And I'm just going to add some of that, and I'll go ahead and pour some into that. Mix it together, and then just...
I can see that this is the same process over and over again, just to layer up with the colors that you want, alternating between paint and resin, making sure that all the layers are gonna show. And when you're done and it has cured, you have something magic.
Pop it out, it's awesome. And it is a little frosty, so you just add a little bit of resin to really...
I was gonna say, if we compare it right here, I can see how much shinier this is. And obviously, to finish it off, if we look over at your finished beautiful pieces here, you have another piece of cast resin underneath it.
That's right.
Fantastic necklaces. I love this idea. You know how much I love eyes.